Greetings friends, got some new editing software. That's what I've been trying to learn over the past 8 days. Been trying to put together that previous video, and I'm using this mic which I've had for some time. I don't know if it's recording for this video, we'll find out at the end. And today I'm going to be talking about intuition and how intuition guides our actions and also infuses the world with magic. Now, intuition isn't affecting or influencing everyone to the same degree. Some people are much more open to it than others, of course, but everyone has it. Now, firstly, intuition operates all at once and suddenly on an unconscious level, you could say. And I've been thinking about this book I read some years ago by W.J.T. Mitchell titled, "What Do Pictures Want?" Kind of a strange idea. And he describes how art connoisseurs basically spot a fake right away. Maybe not all art connoisseurs, but there's these agents. They're in the game. They make a living out of this. So if someone wants to know if this is the real Picasso or the real Rembrandt, there's going to be a handful of people who have spent their whole life studying these paintings. And they get to know the artist's style. They get to know every little thing on a level where it's no longer conscious. So they can spot a fake right away. This is something that W.J.T. Mitchell was discussing. Now, again, of course, there's going to be exceptions, but the idea of this is illustrative of how intuition can work all at once. And then, of course, the person who's heard that they have a fake, they say, well, okay, let's perform some technical analysis. And sure enough, after technical analysis is performed, the initial observation is confirmed that this is a fake. So that just shows that, I mean, it could show that the deductive reasoning is going on. It's a bunch of different stimuli being interpreted, but this person just grasps it all at once. They couldn't explain to the other person why it's a fake. They can't explain that all at once. That will come with time, once you break it down, once you put it into the laboratory. But at the time they say, I don't know, but it's a fake. It doesn't pass the sniff test. It gives the wrong vibe, whatever expression you want to use. Why, when it comes to intuition, are people attracted to certain places and repelled from certain places? Now, I was at the West Island of Ontario Place, former Ontario Place. I've toured around there in a video from last summer because it is a kind of a creepy place. And now there's more people going on to the West Island because it's opened up to the public after only about a year now, after being closed off for many, many years. And people are treating it like a park. They're going all around the island, but they're not really venturing high onto the higher ground in the center of the island. Even though there's plenty of space there, there's plenty of picnic tables and trees and lots. It's a great place to hang out, and that's where I was hanging out with my two friends just the other day. We were just hanging out there because it was such a busy Sunday, and you've got all these people down by the lake. It's not a very relaxed atmosphere at all. It's for families. So I suggested the West Island specifically because I knew that place would be empty, and sure enough it was. I mean, a few people passed by. So what is it with intuition where people, they are sort of passing into the center of the island, but there's this certain area off to one side, about half of the space, where the gravel begins. So they don't want to step off of the brick path onto the gravel, but so what? So what? It's just gravel. It's a bit more unkempt into this territory that I'm describing, but relatively free of garbage. It's just there might be more leaves around. So there's nothing so obvious that would dissuade someone from coming in here, especially with a big city like this. The space is at a premium, but no one's coming in here because something's turning them off. And I sense it too, and my friends could sense that. We all sense this on an intuitive level. The people may be walking by, they have other places to go, better things to do. So, you know, they're making a deductive, they're reasoning too, but the intuition is affecting them as well. it may just be affecting them in that moment all at once. It could be unconscious. And it's just sort of dissuading them. There's something about a bit off here. There's something a bit creepy here. And there is. Conversely, that's why I wouldn't want to be there at night, but I knew that that's a good place to go and hang out because we won't be bothered. But there is something there. I wouldn't be surprised if they could detect spirits haunting that island, haunting the West End. That's exactly the place for it. So I want to speak also about how intuition serves us when the lights go out, when we're lost and we've lost our flashlight. Sometimes all we can rely on is our intuition. And this has saved many people's lives. You have to do something in the moment and you have to act so quickly that you don't really have enough time to think, go over things in your head. Sometimes you just have to rely on your intuition. But more literally, when someone is blind, when they can no longer rely on their normal senses of seeing or perhaps hearing, but in this case, seeing. I can't give you the specific examples, but I'm sure you can find them of blind people whose, I wouldn't say it's not telepathic. It's like an extrasensory sort of spatial perception that is heightened when they're forced to deal with the world blind in how we would recognize the word blind. And of course, not all people are fully blind, and no, they can't become just like a normal human, but it is a very strange phenomenon with blind people, especially if it's young people who are blind, who are playing team sports. There are very interesting experiences in that field where these young folk, and again, I'm sorry can't quote the study, but this is something I've heard of many years ago. But it seems entirely plausible to me that these young folk who are blind, it's like they literally start to develop a spatial awareness of where the other players are, just through time, just through playing. It's like they're tapping into developing a sense that they would be underutilizing. Sort of the same way a brain can reorganize functions like language functions or other functions. If part of the brain is damaged, those functions can be reproduced anew. It takes time. It has to migrate. New neurons have to be not neurons, but new connections have to be forged, but it can happen. That's a bit different. That's more neurochemistry, but this is even going beyond the brain into this weird world of the intuition. Now I want to continue. I was speaking about the magical element and how we infuse the world with life, with magic. And I think that has to do with our intuition. Again, this is something that W.J.T. Mitchell discusses. Imagine a photograph of your mother, and let's assume that your relationship with your mother was at least okay. Maybe it could have been better, but more or less average, not a terrible upbringing. So otherwise, you had a normal upbringing. So you have a photograph of your mother, and let's say someone asks you to poke out the eyes with a pencil or a pen. Just poke out her eyes, maybe poke out her teeth too. Definitely the eyes. Just poke it out. Would you like to do that? I mean, no. Most people wouldn't like to do that. Now, most people would say, oh, well, it's just impolite. It's just not classy to do that. Or why would I do that? Or some reason. But there is no logical reason. It's just a piece of paper with a photograph of your mother on it. So go ahead and shred it to pieces. Shouldn't you be able to do that? Why should it feel strange? Why should it feel bad? That's your intuition. And that puts us in the place of having to, if not admit, then acknowledge that there may be some magical element. It may come from us, it may be imparted from us, but nonetheless, there is some magical element which humans put in images. Other objects too, but specifically images, especially of humans and other people we know. And of course, the same can be said for images of gods in ancient times. Think of paintings. We don't really have a culture of painting so much now in the 21st century West like we would have had in previous centuries, especially painting portraits. there's that uncanny nature of some of these portraits, not all of them, which tend to follow you around the room. It's as if they're watching you no matter where you're standing. Now, there, of course, there's a certain technique painters can use to produce that effect, but it's a very uncanny feeling at the same time. The image seems to be watching you. One more example would be, not always in cartoons, but the way children draw really like plants, animals. They put faces on, often on the sun. The sun has a face. They might put faces on trees. So this is something that children like to do. You won't really see so much in adult animation, or because we know that oh, you know, those are just plants, or those are inanimate objects. They don't have consciousness. Do they? Do they not? Is the rest of the world conscious? I think it is. So our intuition is leading us in the right direction. I want to show you these two wood carvings that I got from Tanzania when I was spending some months there back in 2010, 2011. And they're kind of weird, okay, I know, but they're from an artist a sculptor, painter, all-around artist. Well, he was more of a sculptor. He was more of a carver in this black wood. And his name was Stumai, and he carved this topless African woman here. I know it's like very overtly sexual, but I ended up buying this from his shop because it was one of his... It was just a good piece he had. He had all sorts of other carvings in his shop, and basically he was volunteering at the same school. He was at the same school where I was trying to teach these artists English unsuccessfully. So he was an artist contributing to this sculpture school, painting school, but he had his own shop in town, and I stopped by, and I sort of, you know, I knew Stumai, and I got this, you know, before leaving town again. You see the detail. It's I don't think that's the natural color of the wood. I think they do something to make it that color. Here's another one. Again, the naked naked chick. You can hang this one on your wall. You can hang it on a nail on your wall. And I had this hanging on my wall. These are not like pornographic objects. Although she's pretty hot. I mean, if that was a real chick, then. But then she's looking kind of like a witch. So it's a little. They were in my room for over a year. I don't remember how long, but then they both, you know, this one's on the wall, this one's somewhere else, kind of like, oh, my art, some memorabilia. It started to get a little uncanny. It did, and I had to hide them. They've been hiding in a drawer now. It's not that I think of them as voodoo objects. They're not. But spirits can inhabit objects, especially when it's in the form of a being. It's just more likely. Just like mirrors or other flat surfaces can serve as portals for spirits. Many other things can serve as portals or as conduits for beings, just like human bodies can be possessed. But some things are just more naturally proportioned and suited to that sort of activity than others, and that's the sort of vibe I was getting by these things. I don't necessarily want to destroy them, but I had kind of I had sort of a bad ending to my time with Stumai. We never got in a fight or anything, but he was sort of morally judging me for having a fling with some Tanzanian woman in town who I guess was a black sheep, and I didn't know this at the time because it's like a small town, and so that sort of small town mentality, he was very cold and had been very warm and very friendly and very outgoing, just like so many Tanzanians are. But up until that point in time, then it all changed, and I never talked to him about it, but I knew you know what the issue was. Even though I was volunteering at this school, I was, you know, teaching him English with other people. I was obviously there. I hadn't done anything else, but oh, you do a faux pas. So there was this faux pas I did, and then that caused a weird, you know, bitter taste in my memory of Stumai, and that's associated with these black objects that I now have to hide in a drawer because I don't want to throw them out because they're nice, and I had I had a cool experience over there, but I don't like the way they're watching me. I think they're alive. So maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe I'm overreacting. That could be. Intuition also includes dreams, and dreams usually make use of symbols to help us make sense of our daily lives and give us an indication of what we should do. And in some rare cases, dreams do give information, relatively accurate information about events that will transpire in the future, but I think only within a few days. I think anything past a few days, there's no way a dream realistically is going to be able to give you some accurate information. The Native American Indians have always taken this very seriously, and in fact, they use dreams in their warfare. Their shamans are far more experienced dreamers than any of us. Of course, they're not using it in warfare anymore, but historically that was the case. As I've discussed in a previous video, when Samuel de Champlain encountered the Huron, they were employing shamans to ascertain the size of an enemy only within 2 days march or canoe journey away from them when they were raiding Mohawk territory. Now, these native shamans also commune with spirits, and I wouldn't recommend anyone try to do that unless you're one of them with a lot of experience and you know what you're doing. Because otherwise, you could be in a very bad place. You could establish unwanted, unending contact with a demonic entity. Because a lot of these things out there in the beyond, in these other dimensions, not all of them are friendly, and some of them are very interested in you or I. Don't give them a chance or a reason to visit you. I personally think we can sense another world, a world beyond this veil of ordinary existence. This other world is giving us inputs all the time. We may choose to listen or not. We may feel these inputs often in the belly, in the stomach region. The other world is the best explanation for morality. It's a presuppositional explanation, so it's not perfect, but it's really the only good explanation we have. Try as evolutionists may to explain everything through self-interest. Ultimately, morality, doing something for others, doing something not for yourself, which may contribute to you not passing on your genes. This is something ingrained in us. This is something we sense. You may have to be brought up to a certain extent, but it's just something so basic. It informs all the cultures of the world. When we hurt someone else, and we've been brought up in a regular, healthy environment, it causes us discomfort. We have a sense of doing wrong. The only way to explain this intuitive effect is a sense of what some call cosmic justice. Maybe that's a word that a lot of people don't like, but a sense of a beyond, a sense of you're going to be judged as soon as you get out of this fleeting counterfeit world. You're going to be judged for who you are, for the weight of your heart. And it's just constantly influencing us. You can explain many things through self-interest and reason, but ultimately, too many actions that humans do not benefit us. And yet, there's always that feeling that some things are wrong. There are other things that strike us as wrong too. When adults have inappropriate relations with children, we just know it's wrong. We don't need any reasoning. We don't need any deduction. We know it all at once. We know it more or less unconsciously. We can try to reason later and explain how and why these things are wrong, but ultimately, this is unnecessary. We know it's wrong. We know it's wrong because we will be judged once we are beyond this world. So intuition is always operating. It's affecting us suddenly. It's affecting us unconsciously. We are always receiving inputs from beyond. even if we choose not to listen. Planning and reasoning serve us very well, but when it actually comes time to make a decision, we're going to be feeling our intuition speaking very strongly. Pay attention to it. Hasta luego, amigos.